So welcome to another episode of the Bita of Business podcast here in beautiful Belfast. Today we've got Stephen Smyth from TCTS Group. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on. Great to have you on the Bita of Business podcast.
Pleasure.
So for anybody who doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name's Stephen Smyth and I'm the founder of TCTS Group. And what we do simply, as in very simply put, is we save lives, livelihoods and businesses daily by implementing control measures, support, protection for the business.
And is this the sort of work you always saw yourself do?
I'll say yes, because we have 6 main divisions within the company, okay? And then 6 main divisions are 6 specialist areas. So overall, my time working, I've always been involved in them 6 specialist areas, from accident collision investigation to vehicle examination, to training. And so yeah, we kind of grouped them all together and that's what we put together. So to answer that, I would say yes, most of it I've always seen myself doing.
How did you get into this line of work?
It's funny you asked that actually, because when I became a collision accident investigator, so I specialise in fatal accident investigation, but to get that far I had to become a vehicle examiner and a forensic vehicle examiner. But before that I had to become a mechanic, and with that there's a lot of guys who go into the light vehicles only, cars, light vans, and then other guys go into the trucks only. But I had done the 2 of them, as in, fleet engineer and diagnostic technician work. And it kind of came about, only a number of years ago, you kind of realise this, it came about from years and years ago with my older brother, Simon, who is no longer with us. He had a very, very serious car accident. And he was in a coma for a long time, a life support machine and all this jazz. And I remember him coming home and us having to teach him how to walk again and go to the toilet again and all that jazz. And it's what you don't realise is it was back then is when the seed was planted to become an accident investigator. And as the years went on and I became a psychological profiler, because that's a part of becoming a collision investigator, and you start going down that avenue more and more, you realise then that that's actually what started it all off, believe it or not. That on the other side of the coin, where I was massive into the likes of construction and building and maintenance that my father was in. And then he told me when I think it was 15 or 16, never get into this industry. Warned me, don't you ever get into this industry. So the next thing then that I wanted to do was mechanical engineering, welding, fabricating, all that stuff. So that's really where it started.
So you guys do a range of different work, 6 different parts of the business. Give us a wee bit more information about each of those then.
So our main division is our compliance division. Now, compliance is with transport compliance, business compliance as in health and safety, risk mitigation, risk management. And it all, although we have 6 divisions, it all folds into the one thing, and that is protecting the business. So in transport compliance, where we specialise in operator's license, tachograph analysis, tachograph management. As you know, I'm just literally in here after the public inquiry here in Belfast, which we got a great result, but that's what we do as well. We represent companies as expert witness and transport consultant. And these companies get themselves in trouble a lot of the time because they don't have these control measures in place. Now, it can be any business in any sector. It's not just transport, but we do specialise, in transport, logistics, warehousing, shipping, aviation, 3PL, 4PL, manufacturing, engineering. So we're in all different divisions from that. Then from that, we have our training division, which is probably one of our most popular divisions. And we provide training in multiple sectors. Like we have, I think we've 283 courses at the moment. And a lot of them is on-site, face-to-face courses. And we bring a lot, we try and cut the mold and bring a bit of passion to it, bring a bit of interest to it. And why do we do that? Is because we're the same guys that do the accident investigation. We're the same guys who do the expert witness. So when we go into the likes of a court environment and pull apart the training that the company has got or that an employee has got, it's very easy to pull it apart. So therefore, our training division is the complete opposite. We put control measures in place to protect the business. Then from that, we have our electrical road safety division, we have our health and safety division, and we have a transport division. So yeah, with an end-to-end service, an end-to-end solution for all industries.
And what would you say motivates you to do what you do?
What motivates me? probably being told no and being told I can't do something. That's really what motivates me. You know, we go into companies and they say you can't do this and you can't do that. We like to push the boundaries of everything for businesses. If I give you an example of what I mean, you go into a business now and it's HR, for example, or health and safety. Okay, everybody just reiterates documentation. They read a bit of legislation, they read a bit of guidance, and they put it into a business without having the relevant experience or background. And businesses are out hundreds of thousands of pounds for absolutely no need. And it's only ever a box ticking exercise. So when you do it right, you actually save a lot of money doing it right. So that's one of my main motivators, I would say.
Do you ever face like moments of doubt in the business, or moments where you question what you're doing?
I question every day what I do. Of course I do, yeah, absolutely. We actually have 8 businesses altogether. TCTS Group's only one of the businesses. Yeah, of course you have doubt. But then I strongly believe it all depends on what your passion is. You know, if you're only interested in business, okay, you'll get so far. If you're only money driven, you'll only get so far. But if you have a passion for what the end result is, and their passion is very simple, saving lives, livelihoods, and saving businesses.
And, we've spoken to you a couple of times and you're always very busy. Like even now we're on a Friday and you're going to be working Saturday and Sunday over the bank holiday weekend. Do you ever get burnout?
Don't believe in burnout, Chris. No, don't believe in burnout. I know you disagree with me here, but what happens with people who burn out? Burnout to me is where people are very poorly organised and they get themselves under severe pressure because they're very poorly organised. And you can't be organised if you have a 9-to-5 mentality in business. And some guys do have that. Like some guys refuse to work at the weekend. And I don't know of any business, as in successful business. And what I mean by successful, I mean a damn good service delivery. I'm not talking about financially only, but a good service delivery. Them guys don't work 9 to 5. They don't mind going in for maybe even an hour or 2 hours on Saturday or Sunday. They keep on top of it. So burnout comes from people not being organised. And I think that's why I don't believe in it as such.
How's your mindset evolved as you've, gained more responsibilities with the business as it's grown?
There's a lot of responsibility in business, not only to yourself and to your staff, but also to your clients. Because in our industry, there is fly by night. People come, people go, they go in, they do a bit of a job, maybe 2-3 years later, you can't get in contact with them and they no longer exist. So my mindset has changed. One thing about business is that it's probably the most loneliest place in the world. I mean the loneliest place in the world. So you have to be comfortable with your own company. And no matter how of a senior management post you might hold, when you're the founder of the business, you are completely on your own. It doesn't matter. And even if you had a joint founder, if there was 2 years in the business, well, it would still be the same. It wouldn't be split 50-50. Each one of them would have that mindset to know there's a very, very lonely place. So you have to be comfortable with your own
skid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say there's a cost that comes with your success?
Oh yeah, definitely a cost, yeah. But it depends. I suppose I don't look back because you're not going that way. You know what I mean? I just always keep focused, very, very focused on the future. And I keep very focused on the now, because you can't go too far into the future. Now, we're talking about business plans and all that and business growth. Yes, that's one thing, but you have to be very present in the moment to ensure that your customers and clients are being served. In our industry, it's a wee bit different, Chris, because the customer's not always right. If the customer was right, they wouldn't need us. And what we do is go in and find the problem and fix the problem. And a lot of guys, don't like that. Some guys absolutely love it. My point of view is that if I had somebody coming into my businesses and taking over all and the whole responsibility on their shoulders, I would love it. But there's nobody else in the sector that does that for us.
What would you say makes TCTS Group different from others in your industry?
I would say, first of all, is the background and experience. I don't know of any other company that has the background or experience that we have. Starting with myself as the founder and working back down through our guys. I handpick staff. I headhunt staff, and they have to have a very unique background. And what I mean by unique is they have to have a background set in everything that we do. So, for example, a transport compliance officer I would always look for someone who has drove vehicles, drove trucks, stayed out in trucks, done overnights, done weeks away, and then build them up through that way into transport management, into investigation, into audit, and into lead auditor. And that's sort of the career path that we would look for in them guys.
And would you say there's competition in Northern Ireland, that do a lot of the similar work that you do, or?
No, well, to date we have no competition. And when I got involved with the likes of investing into Trade Ireland, one of the most attractive things to them was they went their own route and thought this man's crazy talking like this. And then they come back and he says, geez, you're right, you have no competition. We have loads of companies that do bits of what we do, absolutely, but we have nobody who has pieced it together as an end-to-end solution. And as I say, we cover Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, the UK and Europe. So we're everywhere.
Is there a project that best represents what it is you guys do and what you're all about?
Oh, there's thousands of them, yeah. But even just today, as we record this, I'm literally just in from a public inquiry in Belfast, and that company were losing their whole livelihood, and their whole business was going to be more or less shut down. Their license would have been revoked, as in their operator's license, and that's it. Like the business, the directors would be struck off company's house. It's just a knock-on effect, and like just that result today of getting that more or less throughout, put to bed. But it's not put to bed by conversation, it's put to bed by us already going in, putting all the control measures in place, proving to the department, which in Northern Ireland is the Transport Regulation Unit, proving to them what this company is going to do and has done to date to make sure they're compliant. So that's just an example of today of what we do each and every day of the week.
And can you elaborate on that a wee bit more? So for people that aren't necessarily in the industry or knows the technical terms, was this somebody who, is it a logistics company or a trucking company?
Good question. Yeah. Right. So it's not as I don't want to say too much. Obviously, it's a manufacturing company. Okay, and by default, they have commercial vehicles that carry their own product from A to B. And these guys, there's a lot of companies out there, they think they're, I wouldn't say exempt from operator's license legislation, but they don't think they have to abide by the same rules as the big boys. So the likes of our Kalinas and Eddie Stobart and McCulloughs and Milgrews here in Northern Ireland. And they do. The legislation is the same for them. So without that operator's license, the company would have to bring in external subcontractors. That external subcontractor causes a lot of problems in this particular industry because first, they can't just deliver as and when because their own planning to do. They can't bring vehicles down and sit all day to wait to be backloaded. There's a lot of restraints on a company that doesn't have their own operator license. So from a percentage point of view, when we sit and work it out, a good 90% of their work has to be done by their own vehicles. But they didn't realise that until the whole issue came about for the public inquiry. And the public inquiry all started because of one roadside stop by DVA Transport Enforcement. That one roadside stop detected an issue with the tachograph, as in the tachographs weren't being downloaded within the required time scale. And from that, just all hell broke loose. So again, that affects the business, affects the company. And if they had to bring in an external operator, then their profit margins would have been down dramatically to the extent where they would have had to lay people off. And that's the realistic side of it.
Yeah. What would you say has changed most in your industry since you first started?
It's hard really to put a finger on one thing because the industry itself, mainly because of Brexit and all, to be honest, there are so many transport and logistic firms that are going out of business. They're going into administration. The cost of things have went through the roof. And everybody sees it. If we just keep it the transport industry, everybody sees a truck on the road, a lorry, truck and trailer, and they pass no marks on it. They have no idea of the cost that these guys go through. They have no idea of even the cost of the equipment. They have no idea of the legislation. Transport is one of the most highly regulated industries in the world. But still, without transport, nobody lives. Without transportation, no matter what sector you're from, no matter what you think about it, everything is transported by road at the very end. So we can talk about rail, we can talk about shipping, we can talk about aviation, but that last bit of the journey is always by road. and therefore their costs have went through the roof. So the main thing I've seen is the costs and the regulation that has tightened, and they haven't played ball with the transport operators. They haven't given them any support whatsoever, despite what politicians and all say. They are absolutely out on their own. However, without them, none of us would be alive.
How do you build trust with the likes of your clients, your partners, and your team?
I would say with our clients especially, it's we are not yes men. And as a service provider, that's hard to say. A lot of people don't understand what I mean. But if I go into a business, my sole aim and objective is to save and protect that business. That is it. There is no kissing. That is it. We need to protect that business. And most of the time, it involves us highlighting the problems, highlighting issues. And I have many of heated discussion at the boardroom table in companies where we're looking around the table, we're seeing the problem, we're saying that guy, they need to go. They're a liability to your business. And then we'll prove why. And then from that, we can fix it. So that's probably the biggest way of gaining trust. Everything that our clients do, we're involved in. So every time they take a bad hit, we take a bad hit. And we do get far too involved with our clients, but that's the only way of doing it. You have to be fit to protect your client.
And what about with the likes of your partners and then your team?
Partners isn't what way now?
Partners that you work with, different.
Oh, our service providers, yes, or APAs, not. I think the trust really is, the first thing is trust is earned, right? And it's very important to understand that, because no matter what background people come from, they have to earn the trust. So everybody that works for me or anybody that's associated with me has to earn trust. And trust is only earned by what has been done. It's not about what you can say what you can do, but if I just stand back and see what people do, it's a completely different ballgame. And that goes the same the other way. So if I tell staff or partners what I'm going to do for them, I need to be fit to produce. I need to be fit to show them through action what I can do. And without action, you have nothing.
Finally, then, what about your team? How do you build trust within the team at TCTS Group?
Same thing as well. I think when you sit down and you try and show the team the vision of where you're going and let them map it out with you, and then you show them that what your plan was or what your plan is, you will get to them milestones. And no matter what happens, nobody will ever stand in our way. We have to get to that destination. And the good people, should I say, that we employ over the years, anybody that has been at that level will see that very clearly, and they will understand where we're going. One thing in my business is I don't set rules in the business. I only set standards, and everybody has to meet our standard. Rules are rules. It's box ticking exercise. Stick up a poster. Nobody cares. But the standards is the standard at all times, which means when I'm not there, and if I'm not holding their hand, they hold the same standard and represent me, represent our companies, and the trust works both ways. We have to show our staff the trust.
What would you say has been a lesson that you've learned the hard way when it comes to management or leadership?
I have to go back to action. Everything is about action, right? People say, but they don't show. So they will talk about it. And it's funny, we're doing a lot of recruitment the last couple of years, and we're sitting at, we're trying to build our senior team as well. And the amount of people that just put this fluff in a CV as if we're not going to dissect the CV, and they'll talk about being involved in, 200-300 million pounds worth of sales, and they increase the business here and they increase the business there. When you start dissecting that, then you see very clearly that actually that's completely irrelevant of what they've said. So it goes back again to action, and it's about taking action all the time. And it's the same as myself. Action and accountability is the only two things that we lead by. You have to be accountable to yourself. You have to be accountable to your clients. You have to be accountable then to your staff and your team around you.
And are there any examples where you've had a takeaway from something that has happened during your journey?
What I've learned is I always had the mentality, trust nobody. It's as simple as that. And a thing of years and years ago, a man's word holds no weight anymore. Somebody shaking your hand holds no weight anymore. And I think that's really the facts behind it. So a big thing that I've taken away is that the likes of your contractual agreements, the likes of your quotations, like when we do a service proposal or an SLA or a quotation, I ensure that our guys put that out as transparent as we can, because there's nothing as hateful myself getting work done and then all these hidden charges come about. And when we're very transparent with the customer or client, well then that's it, end of story. However, over the years we have been burnt. I'd say nearly every year we'll get burnt somewhere. And sometimes it's not the company's fault, as I say, because of the crippling costs and the tightening of legislation and the more enforcement of legislation. It's not so much the tightening of it, has forced a lot of transport logistic companies into administration. Now, of course, there are the ones that just, hide money and go into administration just to make money. But we have a number of real good, especially long-standing family companies who have been just, bust overnight. And again, the likes of the credit terms have just stopped. We've literally stopped credit terms with nearly any new client, especially, but clients that have been with me 12 years, we have just knocked that down to maybe 14 days because they don't even know what's going to happen overnight. So that's my biggest takeaway.
So how does that work then? How do people gain your trust? So for somebody who's very cautious and trusts nobody,
yes,
what does it take to gain your trust then?
Again, it's all about, don't tell me, show me. Just show me. I just see it, just plain as day. What people do is how they gain trust. In relation to staff, it's a good example as well, because it's all about the level of consistency. When everything's going fantastic and everybody's on top, that's not what I count at all. I don't even give appreciation for that. I only count in the dark times, in the low times, in the times we're going through trouble. Like we've been in and out of court being sued by the likes of recruitment agencies, and I'm in the middle of a criminal investigation with Invest NI. We've been shafted every way you can think of. But they can never beat us, and that's the mentality. So the staff that are down in the trenches with you at that moment in time is the only time that I can build trust with anybody.
And how do you keep the team aligned with you and what your priorities are in the business?
It's by ensuring that I keep them accountable. So it's okay when people say we'll keep the team accountable. The very first person that has to be kept accountable is me. And I have to keep myself accountable all the time. So when I keep myself accountable, I can keep their team accountable. And when I'm keeping them accountable, it's very transparent. Because instead of letting it spiral out of control, the consistency in the communication is key. Now, some people don't like that. And some people say, listen, we're being monitored too much. There's too much given out about things not being done. But as I say to everybody when they come into any of our businesses, we have a standard that we set. You either meet it or you don't meet it. That's it.
So you mentioned Invest NI, and so tell us about what's going on there.
So Invest NI, there's a lot of people come out of the woodwork, Chris, to be honest, when they found out the issue that we're going through with them. And it started off with Invest NI going to their clients a couple of years ago and saying, listen, we've ran out of money. That's it. Now, to me, that wasn't good enough. We had paid a clown of an outfit here in Belfast for software development. They could not produce. I highlighted this time and time again, but they still paid out to this company. Then it transpired that company is an Invest NI client. So this is more or less how it all started. And Invest NI was expecting me to do what everybody else was doing and just go away and just go to bed. But as I say, it comes back to accountability. I had to hold them accountable. What is the problem here? Where is the money went? We've paid the money. We've been granted the grant. So therefore, why are we not getting this grant? We've jumped through every hoop, and that's all it is jumping through hoops. And that annoyed me first of all, but because I work for a lot of investor boards, I also work for investor boards who, hold up Invest NI from America and from Europe. And then I see the back room of how it's built and managed. So I have a lot more understanding of why they do it that way, But at the same time, I wasn't going to run away and hide from anybody, So I have to be up very, very early in the morning and ready to go toe to toe. And all these guys that mouth about it, a lot of them's gone out of it now. Take early retirement and all this other crack that you hear. But it's still Invest NI we're dealing with. We're not dealing with anybody else.
So just going back there, just to explain the situation, it's you were get some grant funding from Invest NI for a digital project, was it?
Yeah, for a massive software project. And to be honest, I didn't really want to get involved with them at the start, not for any other reason apart from they're so slow. There's so much red tape. But at the same time, when I was approached by investors, I didn't want to get involved with too many investors because I invest myself in businesses and I can see how much percentage comes away from that. So we ran that with TCTS Group and I didn't like the way it was working. So we started a technology company. And from that, we were granted I think 3 rounds of funding as such from Invest NI. And as I say, Chris, we jumped through all the hoops. Now, what do I mean with jumping through hoops? I'm based in County Fermanagh. Everything apparently is up here in Belfast, right? Nobody has any appreciation for us guys down that side. But by the time you run up and down to Belfast, by the time you go to these meetings, these events, these breakfast networking events, it takes so much time. So when you even calculate up that time, like the amount of money we were out was very, very substantial. And then we paid these software guys and we did not agree. The software was not good enough. They weren't capable. They weren't competent of building software. We proved that to Invest NI and Invest NI's answer was, but you need to pay them anyway. And when we get the evidence you paid them, we will then pay the grant out. And that's where it all fell apart. So we're in the middle of a criminal investigation that I instigated, and I had to instigate it for Invest NI to come back now and challenge me on things that we have been doing.
So are you a lawyer then? Are you tell us a little bit about the experience and the qualifications you have. I mean, it's not often you speak to somebody and they say they're taking Invest NI to a criminal investigation.
Yeah, well, no, I'm an expert witness, and I've been a covert investigator for 12, 15 years. And I've been involved in every part of, from criminal investigations to civil to fatal actions, every part of it. And I would have spent a good 12 years of my life in law enforcement. So I have a big background from that point of view, but the investigative background is the main background. The accreditation as expert witness it allows me to go toe to toe with any of these guys. Solicitors and barristers, we have our own guys that work for us through our APA, our authorised associates and dividers. And we have to school them up all the time. So the expert witness sits at the top of the tree, and then you run down your barrister, your solicitor, and that's the way the hierarchy goes. So that's really where the whole background comes from. But going up against Invest NI is nothing to do with that. Going up against Invest NI is the sheer fact that anybody tries to treat businesses like that. But still, we will put out to the media about all this support that business is getting all in Ireland. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And the only people that can, and you know this because I've said this many times when I talk with business coaches and all, you have these people giving advice and you have to question the person, not the advice, but the person. So a business coach is a good example. If they haven't founded and ran multiple businesses on multiple profit margins, how can they give somebody advice? So a number of years ago, we won business awards, and a part of the business award, one of the parts of the prize, should we call it, was that you got a business mentor. Now, this is going back maybe 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And anyway, this guy landed out to us, and he walked in, and he was driving a nice BMW outside, and he came in with a short and tie on, and he sat down in my office, and I asked him 4 questions. And the first question was, what was the turnover? The second one, what was his profit? And the third was his background of senior management and has he exited the business? That was my 4 questions. And the guy was disgusted. He says, how dare you? I'm not here to be questioned by you. And I'm looking at this guy thinking, no, you are. You're here as a business coach. So therefore, you work for me. And what I need to see is results. So therefore, you need to take action and show me what you can do. So anyway, he got up out of the room and he walked out, slammed the door. I came back in again. I was all upset that I had questioned about this. And I didn't flinch of, listen, answer the questions and I'll deal with you. So he slammed the door again. He walked back out. And 10 minutes later, he walked back in again. And I said to him, listen, you just need me to sign this bit of paper, don't you? So you can get your fee. I signed the bit of paper. I said, I don't care. You're taking up my time. And my time is far more valuable than your time will ever be. So I'll sign the bit of paper and you get your £400 or £500. And what stuck the cord with him was the fact that he came back into me to agree that he had no background. that he was only, a sole trader tiddling about, and he worked maybe mid-management somewhere in the civil service or somewhere that was irrelevant, and he was still getting about to give advice to people. And that always stuck in my throat, Chris. And still to this day, when I meet people and they say, "Oh, I'm a business coach," I will strip them apart. You need to justify your existence of what you mean by a business coach, because smaller companies and smaller businesses and people that's maybe not as headstrong as I would be, they're just taken for granted. They're just used and abused, and then there is no action, there is no result. So therefore, we can't KPI it, we can't monitor it.
So who do you learn from then at the minute?
My main mentor, who is a long time dead, is Jim Rohn. So, I'm big into the likes of audio books and I read a lot of stuff. But my main mentor is probably a lot of my clients. A lot of my very successful clients are my main mentors. I will bring them for lunch or bring them for dinner, and I will pick their brain. I mean, I will pull everything I can out of them, because they're telling you things that they don't even know is relevant. And they're giving out information that they don't even know is relevant. And the way they deal with people, the way they deal with situations. So when I, worked in the civil service, it was all, you got into certain, level 4, 5, 6 management and all these courses that were all padded, should we say. And then you go into the real world and it's all completely irrelevant. So when you're dealing with these guys and they're asking you specific questions like, are you running monthly management accounts? How are you holding people accountable? What is your KPIs? What is your OKRs? One guy that a client of mine in England, he's mad obsessed with OKRs, which is objective and key results. And I had never heard this methodology before. So when I sat with him, I had to go into the office, I had to go into his workplace to see what he meant. And when he went into the workplace, where we're all taught now is you can't speak to people at all, let them know badly. He walked into the office and he must have given out to 10 different people, but between the foyer and his office. And he didn't give out as in shouting and roaring and throwing stuff. He gave out by just making them aware that you're here to do a job, and at this moment in time you're failing to do that job. What is the problem? And that was the accountability that I love to see. So when we're told that because of HR you can't say A, B, C and D, that's another part why businesses are ruined and businesses are failing at a rapid speed.
What would you say is something that most people misunderstand about running a business?
Misunderstand running business. First thing is, you're on your own. You have to remember that. And anybody going into business, you have to remember it is the loneliest place in the world. And no matter who's in with you, what team you have, it's just the loneliest place in the world. Second is that I'm a very impatient person. And you can't be impatient in business because everything takes so long. Oh my God, it takes so long, Chris. Like something that you think is going to take 12 months will take 5 years. And even recruitment, even processes, systems, trying to get external providers to work with you, trying to set up things. And one of our companies, Smyth Enterprises, it was created for that. I created that business as I like to say, an entrepreneurial spiritual company. I like to call it, right? Because the whole aim for it is to become an angel investor business, when I was starting, if I had somebody to flick a switch and say, right, from this day forward, we have it all sorted out. Here's your accounts, here's your accounts packages, here's your emails, here's your software, here's your protection, here's your antivirus, here's your alarm systems, here's your interview process, here's your applications, here's your job descriptions. At the click of a button, you would fast forward on 3 to 5 years, and you would fast forward on to the stage where you would either make a go of it or you'd shut it down very quickly. And sometimes you have to shut things down very quickly rather than let them fester.
Have you ever made a mistake that you're now grateful for?
Yeah. There was a period of growth that I was extremely aggressive on. And I had staff all over the place doing nothing because I was still out doing the work. And I was grateful to the point where, again, because of one of my clients had a very, aggressive talk with me one evening in London. We were sitting on a meeting, and after it, what he said to me was, "You've came to this meeting, we've brought you in here to do risk management for a new logistic hub that we're purchasing. You're involved in the buying team, you're involved in the acquisition team, and that bloody phone of yours never stops." And I says, yeah, but sure, I've these things to deal with. And at that stage, we had a high staff number. And he made me sit down and dissect what every staff member done. And I couldn't justify 70% of them, maybe even 80% of them. I couldn't. And I would have classed myself good at recruitment. And the problem was I was stuck in the middle of the business all the time. So at that stage then, we started to KPI people. We started to really give them aims, objectives, and really monitor them. And that caused all hell broke loose, because now all of a sudden you were going in, nobody cared what you were there to do. You told me you had this experience. You were completely irrelevant experience that you said you had. And the most important bit is that, people build businesses. Businesses don't build people. So you need your people. Like without your people, you have nothing. So again, put them control measures in place left me in a great position where a lot of people were managed out. And that decision at the time, I thought was detrimental. Like we probably sacked, managed out half of the staff. And 2 or 3 weeks later, we were struggling to get work out. We were completely under severe pressure. And at that time, I thought I made a massive mistake. And then I thought, will I go back and bring half of these clowns back in again? Guys that I knew shouldn't have been there, but they'll tick a box, they'll do 2 days here and they'll be fit to go out to that client. They'll just do enough. And I didn't do that. And that's what I'm probably grateful for.
If you were to go back 10 years and have a coffee with yourself, what would you be talking about?
We'd probably be arguing who's going to pay. That's the first thing. What are we talking about? Well, the first advice I would give anybody, and this is honest advice, okay? The most important place in a business is the first number twos. So if I was doing this again, I would aim and focus to be the first number two. Now, if TCTS Group existed, I would be the first number two. I would be one of the first number twos. And why it existed is because it didn't exist at the time. I had it created because there was nobody linking all these divisions together. And although it sounds like we've crazy stuff, we've 6 divisions TCTS Ireland, we have 6 divisions in TCTS Group, and then we have other businesses. So that's like overall 20 businesses wrapped into one overall holding company. And if that was out there, I would be the first number two.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, the first number two is like Richard Branson doesn't fly his own planes. Okay. Elon Musk, for example, his first number twos are paid 20, 30 times more than he'll ever be paid. So the first number twos in a business are the business. The more that I build my teams, the more I build my senior team, I'm not the business anymore. I'm the founder, and I'll always be the founder. And where I got this mentality from was I was sitting on a plane coming back from the UK, and I downloaded a podcast that Ben Francis was on. And I'm a bit obsessed with Ben Francis from Gymshark. And anyway, within this podcast I was listening to, when he gave up his CEO position and he gave it out to Steve Hewitt, who came in to be the CEO, he realised that the names meant nothing. And when I heard him talking about that resonated with me, because titles are irrelevant. I don't really work on titles. And the thing that he said is that he'll always be the founder by default. Whether it goes great or whether it goes bust, he'll always be the founder. So that really stuck with me to the point of realizing that, no matter what happens, the founder is just always the founder, but they'll only ever be the founder. The business can't grow with the founder. It has to be the team underneath. Did that answer that question? No?
Kind of, yeah. So would you say you work more on the business or the business currently?
Currently both. I try and always aim to work on the business. But then we have the likes of today with public inquiries. I was in court last week several times. I just don't have the skill set of staff, and nobody has. Like, again, that's why we're so busy doing that. And it's really trying to bring guys in through our staff development program to get them up to that level. And we've had it all. We've had solicitors that's come into work for us. We've had barristers who have, come away from the bar to come in and work in this industry. And they just can't hack it, for the simple reason is that it is 24/7, 365. It doesn't stop. It doesn't sleep. Am I condoning that? No, I'm not. But, you have to do what you have to do for your clients. It's all about the client. It's all about your customer. If you don't have your customer or client, you've nothing.
what do you wish more people knew about what goes on behind the scenes when you run a business like this?
I would listen to a lot of YouTube. And I say listen, not watch, because I do a lot of hours, do crazy hours. So when I have screens in the office going, something YouTube will be on. And I really enjoy them behind the scenes sort of videos, because people don't realize what goes on. Like, you're talking about sacrifices. People have no idea what happens. It could be from the most minute thing, from your internet going down to new staff starting and you onboarding them and wasting time onboarding the ones then that don't last. From anything from the corporation side of the business, from dealing with HMRC, who is never on your side at any time, dealing with legislation within the business, dealing with their accreditations, dealing with their accreditation bodies, dealing with our sites, dealing with customers and clients. And we sometimes bring people in who have what they would say a massive background in the likes of transport management or transport compliance. And they might have been a group or an area transport manager on a large company with a large fleet size. Then they come from that and they come to us. And now they're not dealing with one operator. They're dealing with hundreds of operators. Well, now we're into thousands of operators. So they're dealing with, even if it was just, we've over 9,000 clients on our system, if they're just dealing with each of them and they only had one vehicle each and one driver each and one staff member each, it would still be tough. But then they come in and they're dealing with everybody. As I say, we're involved in everything of the business, every part of our client's business. And that's where they get kind of sucked into.
How do you think you've ended up with thousands of clients over the years? Has it been going to networking events? Has it been outbound sales strategies?
Our business is based on, our business started first of all with the reputation at the roadside. So when my last job in transport enforcement, you dealt with people on the roadside, and you had a heavy reputation of the way that you dealt with people, and you had a high hit rate on non-compliant vehicles and drivers and operators, but you dealt with them with respect. And when you dealt with them with respect, you educated them. And a big part of the transport enforcement thing was the lack of education, because the guys didn't know themselves. If the law states drive for 4.5 hours, it states drive for 4.5 hours. So that then came back in a roundabout way to serve me very well. And when we started, we had a lot of old customers of mine from the road that were coming on board and wanting us to do their work. And then from that, it's really word of mouth. Now, word of mouth is the main thing, because the guy that owns the company, and it's only the owners that that I personally really care about, is that owner of the company realizes that we're protecting their business and their livelihood. And therefore, when they network, especially, then by word of mouth, that's where we get our work from. Like, we have a very, very large waiting list. And the problem with the waiting list is, and it's great to say that, and I'd love to boast about that, but I absolutely hate it. I hate the waiting list. Because a lot of our waiting lists, we will triage them. We'll select what comes first, and we have a rule internally that if it comes as a recommendation from another client of ours, we need to put them near the top. And these guys near the top are going into November, December 2026, which it sounds great, and it sounds like, oh, that's a great business model. It's soul destroying for me, because all we want to do is serve our clients.
What's a good day look like for Stephen Smyth?
What's a good day look like? What do you find? I get that here, Chris.
So, give us an idea of what you're doing when you're not working.
But I mean,
what's a good day for?
Well, that's why I'm asking. What are you trying to get at here, right? Because every day there's work of some kind. Okay. Now, I don't see the difference. I don't believe in work-life balance. There's no work-life balance. Life is work and work is life. That's the way it should be. By default, it's like that. Now, you're smiling there, but why I'm saying this is because if I have a client of mine, and especially a long-standing client, and he phones me on a Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, that guy will be answered. My senior team, if I find out they don't answer to a client at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, well, they won't be there. They just don't last. I'm very lucky at the moment. My right-hand man, Mark, is TCTS Group at the minute. And, he's built his team. And the two of us have the same mentality. So therefore, although he's a very, very heavy family man, you know, he lives for his 3 girls, and his wife, you know, and he lives for that stuff. But at the same time, he's the same mentality that, you know, there's the work-life balance. So to answer your question, Chris, a perfect day would be out on the boats, on one of our boats out on Lough Erne in County Fermanagh, the sun splitting the stones, or even rain. I don't mind going out in the boat at any time, and just going for a good run up and down Lough Erne. But everything's work related by default. By default, if I pull into a jetty and I'm chatting people, and my other half, Natalie, she doesn't be too impressed by it because she thinks I'm always on the sail, but I'm not. I just love finding out from people. And you'll meet somebody on a jetty with a pair of flip-flops, in a pair of shorts. You don't know what they are, what background they're from, nothing. And you're just chatting them and treat them with respect. And the next thing that you find out they're a business owner, and the next thing Monday morning comes and they're booking in work. And that's just a perfect day, you know.
So if go back to the no such thing as a work-life balance, how does that, you know, how does that work for the likes of your partner, your family, your kids?
They're used to it. And they just have to be used to it, because my partner Natalie she's a wee bit different, because, you know, she's a worker. So she's a worker. And if you're speaking to anybody else that's not a worker, do you know what I mean by the mentality of a worker? Even if it's at home, and anything from looking after the house to looking after the dog, you know, it's all done at a very, very high-paced level all the time. So it's different on who you're speaking to time by time. But when my son Ben was a baby, he's 21 now, I used to put him in the diary. I used to book him in the diary. And I worked in TransLink as a fleet engineer at the time. And everybody used to slag me, you know, and say, geez, that's terrible. You're booking the child in on a diary. And I says, absolutely. Because, you know, the only thing that you cannot buy back in time or in life is time. You just can't buy back time. So therefore, when I'm booking it in, so say Thursday night, swimming pool, after the swimming pool, go to McDonald's, Friday, go to the cinema, Saturday, get the bikes out and go, you know, up in the Castle Cool or wherever we went at the time. That was dedicated time that he got. So when he was booked in the calendar, nothing else came around that. And these other guys were going home, throwing an iPad to the child, sit in the corner, you know, let the iPad play, and I'm parenting you. So from my point of view, mine was far more superior by doing it that way. Because that was dedicated time. Now, if you phone me when I was spending time with Ben, and don't get me wrong, I'm a single father, you know, at that time, which maybe was the main fire behind it, maybe. But that time was his and his only. So the only time you wouldn't get me on the phone, I would answer the phone, but it'd be, I'll phone you back. So he got his time. And that's just the way it is, you know.
Would you say that was a big driving force of growing the business as well, being a single father?
I never wanted to go into business, Chris. Absolutely no interest. Absolutely no interest. How it really all started was when I was working for DVA, Transport Enforcement. We were on the road all the time, obviously stopping guys. And when we were prosecuting guys, or, you know, interviewing them under caution, I came across this particular guy, and he was stopped, and he had a bad tire in the truck. He had no operator's license, no tachograph, and he was an old man, you know. He was well into his 70s, and not that that's old, by the way, but he was in his 70s. And anyway, a couple of months passed, and I was at court for a different job. And as I was going into the court, I met him and the wife, and anyway, the wife was in floods of tears, and I stopped to speak to them, and spoke to them for a couple of minutes because I thought it was about something else. And I happened to ask them, what are you here today for? And the boy looked at me and he says, because of you. And I said, all right, why, what's that? He says, because you'd done me for a bad tire and operator's license and all. Now, when we put in the case file, it goes to senior management, and then it goes to PPS, and they make the decision of what's happening. But they came down on that guy like a ton of bricks. And they came down on that guy like a ton of bricks because it was an easy hit. He was an older man. Let's revoke his license. Let's give him a 10-year ban. Let's strike him off company's house. It was an easy hit. Northern Ireland's built on easy hits. We have more bent operators in this country than any other country in Europe. And depending on who they are and what they are, the department will never touch them. And that's just the facts around it. So with this guy, after that, it got me thinking, the guy said to me, he says, I'm a very wealthy man. I own a lot of properties in round Armagh and in round Newry. He says, the money was never an issue. He says, the issue was that I didn't know what I was doing and nowhere could I get the right advice. So as the time went on, the more interviews I was doing under caution, yes, you have the bent operators, but you also had the guys that would look at you in the eye and say, where do we get this information? So you're in there, maybe auditing them or a roadside stop, and they're saying, I don't know what you're talking about. And them people there always stuck in my mind. And this played through for a long period of time. And I was crying out for some organisation to help these people, not just a yearly membership, not just tick a box, but I mean help them. And then I got involved with a number of associations and federations, and it was just all run by, as I call it, the Dirty Old Man's Club. People sitting around a table, talking crap, no relevant experience, no background, and then they were giving advice to these guys. And they said, but here, pay me a yearly membership and I'll make sure you're okay. And this blew my mind. So that's how the business started. That's how TCTS Group started.
Going back to this time outside of the business, would you say you often,
something, Chris, you're going to have to get over that.
Take time, yeah.
You're going to have to get over this.
Yeah, go ahead. I find it interesting. So do you ever switch off? And if so, tell us how.
To be totally honest and transparent, absolutely not. Would I love to switch off? Absolutely. But no, you never switch off. And you know something? No matter where I worked, it was always the same. If I worked for somebody, first in, last out, completely dedicated to the company, and I couldn't switch off there either.
Do you think it's possible to have it all?
Well, what is having it all?
Having plenty of time for your family, for your relationships, for friends, and having a successful business life.
Well, I think it all comes back to understanding what success is. I think that's the big thing,
What success to you?
Success to me is very simple. The success is only happiness. That's all success is. And people confuse it. Like happiness, success does, when you talk about success, everybody talks about money. Everybody talks about money. The very first thing they talk about is money. And that's not what success is. Success is happiness. So the example I always give if somebody asks me a question is, think about a train spotter. No disrespect to train spotters. Think about a train spotter or a plane spotter or anybody like that. And they live their life all week for Friday to come. And then Friday comes or Saturday morning and they wrap up in the scarf and they put the backpack on and they go and they stand on a railway line and look at trains. Now you put any businessman beside them and that train spotter is more successful than that businessman who's chasing the goal and chasing the goal and chasing the goal. So success is only happiness. Now, then you have to dissect what your happiness is. So success is only happiness, but then happiness has to be dissected. And from my point of view, happiness is in three elements. Personally, to me, it's fulfillment, freedom, and options. So if I don't have fulfillment, I have nothing. So fulfillment is, as I say, saving lives, saving livelihoods, and saving businesses. I've worked in every part of road safety, and I realised very quickly that working for the government in road safety wasn't doing much. We have done more in a decade than they have done in 4 or 5 decades. And that's the difference when you take the red tape out of it. So fulfillment is number one key. Number one key. The next then is freedom, but freedom comes in 2 halves. First is the freedom of the mind. So I don't care what anybody thinks of me. It's so irrelevant. That other person's only a human being. They're so irrelevant to me. And therefore their opinion doesn't matter. And a lot of people don't have freedom of the mind. They worry about everybody else, what Jimmy up the road has, how that business is doing. Like it holds so many people back. And then you have financial freedom. And you must have financial freedom, or you must try and aim for financial freedom to allow you to do what you want in life. And that brings me on to options. Options is when you amalgamate it all together. And one of the biggest things is that your health is your wealth. That's the most important thing. The second important thing is that your network is your net worth. So you have to, if you tell me you go out on Saturday night and you go out for a drink or a meal with something and you and the wife's there and you're speaking to somebody, you're networking. So you don't switch off. So people say, I'll switch off and I have work-life balance and all. Come on. get a grip.
So here, looking ahead, what are you looking forward to the most at the minute? In
At the minute,
personal and professional life?
well, we have a lot of big plans, and we have, because as I say, we have 8 different businesses. We have a very set focus on where we're going with all the businesses as well. I'm looking forward to trying to build my senior team under Benfrey Holdings, which is our holding company, to let them run the businesses. And it's so exciting for me, that because like I'm looking to put in managing directors. I'm looking to take myself on out of that, because as I said earlier, like Brian Francis, I'll always be the founder of these businesses. It's irrelevant whether I like it or not. And it's exciting to bring people in and try and bring them in at that level and get them to, not buy into the company, but live and breathe it. And what we do and what we try to do. We get hundreds of CVs every month, hundreds of CVs, and you end up wasting time skipping through them. And the CV is only make-believe. If you've seen some of the CVs we get, it would just blow your mind when you then try and put the facts to it. But out there somewhere, Chris, there are guys, men and women, at certain ages, especially the younger guys, who have such a career opportunity with us at TCTS Group. I mean, a focused, career-driven path that in an industry that will never go away, because we specialize in the main operational activity of transport. It's not the vehicles on the road, it's everything behind it. How it's done, how it's built, how it's monitored, how it's protected, how it's improved, how it's reviewed. And it goes the same for all the industries we work in. They can be manufacturing, engineering. We have such a very impressive, wide range of clients that it's just an exciting time to build the senior team.
So where are you looking to take TCTS Group in the next 2-3 years then?
I think, well, at the moment, my aim is to build a senior team. And why I say that is because for me to build a senior team, I have to dedicate so much time to that, because that is not easy. It's not easy done. And it comes from relationships, and it comes from meeting people. It comes from a lot of networking. It comes from, and you know my take on networking here. And networking, it's a box ticking exercise for mid-level management to get a day off work. That's all a lot of networking is. So the right sort of networking isn't necessarily a networking event, but it is where people will give recommendations to another recommendation to another recommendation. And somewhere along the line, Mark's a good example. For example, I headhunted Mark for a long time to come on board, and eventually he came on board, and the persistence paid. So me being focused on that part of the recruitment, and I have to get out of the business to be fit to do that. And again, why I say networking is because I go to events, I speak at events, I do road safety stuff, I do a lot of charity stuff that we have outside ourselves, and somewhere along the line, somebody will come to me about work.
Like, what's one thing you want people to remember you about what you do?
That we've got your back. It's the loneliest place in the world, but it doesn't have to be that way. When you have somebody coming in and treating your business like their business and being in a position of protection and support, I use them words because it's not a yes man. And you can phone a lot of our clients and they will agree that we don't do the yes man mentality. We are there to protect your business. And that's really all I care about.
If somebody's listening and they don't know about TCTS Group, why should they take notice?
I have clients who started with no transportation. They came to us and we obtained the operator's license. When we obtained the operator's license, we then managed the variation. And from the variation, we increased the license. So I could have maybe a good 200 or 300 in my mind that started with no transportation and are sitting at 400, 500, 600 trucks, maybe 2,000 trailers, Ireland, the UK, Europe. So as they grow, we grow. And a lot of the time is where you make a bit of profit in one job, for this client, you lose it again because you're pumping resources back in to protect them. So, the main reason to be involved with TCTS Group is because we've got your back. As you build and grow, we build and grow. As you scale back, we scale back with you. We take that weight off you. We take that weight off your business. And another very important point, which a lot of people that are watching might know and might bloody comment about this, so I better put it in, is that we also do the other side of the coin. Now, we could be the investigators coming into your business. We can be the expert witness in court against you and your legal team. And therefore, we will go in and we will find every issue and problem there is. So would you not be safer having us on your side than not on your side? Like, I live my life very simply to get with people. You know, I have 3 types of people in my life. Can a course in this? No.
Sure.
Can you beep it out? And my mentality's always been like this. You know, you're either on my side, by my side, or in my fucking way. That's it. So when we go into a business, it's the same thing. So no matter what comes at them, we don't shy away. We're not like their accountants, which might shy away, or their health and safety person that shies away. We're there, toe to toe, the whole way. And why I'm so boastful when I say about who's got your back is because we have to know every part of your business. We have to be involved in everything you do to be fit to boast about going toe to toe with anybody.
So just finally then, just for people watching, if you get one bit of advice that you could give to somebody who's maybe starting off a business, or, you know, maybe in early stages of a business in a tough industry.
The first thing I would say is to remember this sentence, right? Impossible is a big word thrown about by small men. And you have to remember that. And anybody that's watching this that wants advice from me for that is that always question the question. Do you know what I mean? So when you get these guys going in, like the business coaches, like all these other guys that's giving you advice, look at what they've done. Look at what the action they've taken over X amount of years to get to that point. And never be afraid to ask questions of anybody. You know, it's so true. Anybody the same level as you or higher will never dish on you. Do you know what I mean? Anybody the same level or higher will never not answer a question. It's the people that's below you in your journey that will criticize and hold you back and slobber and all this stuff. You know, as people say, I was chatting a guy one day years and years ago at the jetty, and he had a wee rowing boat, and we were beside him in a larger cruiser. And he was a great crack, this fella, and somebody happened to be asking about his boat, but they were kind of slagging off his boat. And as he was tying up, he looked at the guy and he says, all right, what kind of boat do you have? And that was the end of the conversation. So it's the same thing, like, you know, what actions people taking up to date, and don't be afraid to question it. But remember the golden rule that the word impossible is a big word thrown about by small people.
So Stephen, it's been great chatting to you. Just before we go, tell us a little bit more about how people can find you and learn more about what it is you do.
Well, they can jump onto our website at www.tctsgroup.com, or they'll catch it all over social media from TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and our YouTube channel at TCTS Group TV. And with some exciting stuff going on with our YouTube channel, we have the likes of yourselves involved with us on YouTube. So yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment.
Brilliant, Stephen. It's been great chatting to you. So to tune in for more of the Bit of Business podcast, you can check us out on YouTube and Spotify.